May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be now and ever acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. One of the things that strikes me when I read through that bit in Nehemiah chapter 3, about where he lists all the people that do the different sections of the wall, is that at no point does he mention stonemasons. There are priests. There are people who make perfume. There are goldsmiths. There are leading civic leaders. There are some women. Did you know that? I didn't know that till I read it through this time again. Somebody's daughters were involved in building the wall. But at no point does he mention stonemasons. So these people had been taken out of their ordinary, everyday gifting and brought together to do something different. I know where my strengths are, and I'm sure that you know where your strengths are too. But sometimes we need to be prepared to step out of that comfort zone and do something new and different. It might mean that we have to be a bit humble. There must have been stonemasons there. There must have been. But the goldsmiths and the perfume makers and the priests and the women were all ready to learn from somebody else so that together they could be team. And they built a section at a time. My brother-in-law is a very intelligent man. That is, he's got a couple of degrees and he's clever. But when my sister asked him to build a wall, he built a wall like this. And my sister laughed because she gave it one push with her foot and the whole lot came down. These people couldn't have built a section of the wall each without cooperating with the people on the bit of the wall beside them, because otherwise they could not have interlocked those walls together. They were individual teams, but those individual teams had to work with other teams so that the walls could be built. And as Nehemiah and the team built those physical walls, they were building something else at the same time. When the Babylonians conquered anywhere, they took away the brightest and the best. They took away the intelligent, most of the young, anybody who might have an idea to rise up in revolt. They took them all away and they put them into Babylon. And they left behind everybody else. Because they figured that if they left people leaderless, then they would not try and revolt. They would not try and bring down Babylon. They would not try and re-establish a kingdom. And as far as we know, in the 70-odd years that the people were in exile in Babylon, not a lot was done to the walls. Because with the destruction of Jerusalem, it became the end of their dreams and their visions, their hopes, even their sense of who they were, God's chosen people. Jerusalem became the tomb that buried all that. And it took a person of real vision. It took Nehemiah to bring back and reinstill in them, to remind them of who they were, to remind them of the relationship that God still had with them, in spite of what they may have thought, and to bring them together to become a team. Nobody has ever asked me to build a wall, which is just as well, because I wouldn't know where to start. But in reading this, I was reminded of a passage in the New Testament, which is also about building. And this is from the letter of Peter, 1 Peter chapter 2. Therefore, rid yourselves of all malice and deceit, hypocrisy, envy, slander of every kind. Like newborn babies, crave pure spiritual milk, so that by it you may grow up in your salvation, now that you have tasted that the Lord is good. And as you come to him, the living stone, rejected by humans but chosen by God and precious to him, you also, like living stones, are being built into a spiritual house to be a holy priesthood, offering spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. You are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. Once you were not a people, but now you are the people of God. Once you have not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. We may not be called to build a wall, but we are called to be part of the temple of God. We're called to be living stones. Could you go back to the very first one, please? Those people who were building with Nehemiah, there was no room for pretense. You had to be an honest builder. You had to do your part. There was no room for being envious of what other people could do. You had to rejoice in the strengths of other people and then contribute your bit so that all could work together. It would have been impossible to build it if everybody was always moaning about everybody else. All of those things destroy the community that we're called to be. Instead, they had to start again. They had to listen. They had to work together. They were called to be the builders of the walls of Jerusalem. And we are called to be the builders of the temple of God in this place. We're called to be those living stones. I was reminded then of a poem I once read. I think I brought it to you before, but I'm going to bring it to you again. Neil, my brother-in-law, learned how to build with stones, with bricks. All the bricks were the same shape, the same size, and when he put them up properly, he made a strong wall. It's a skill. Bricklaying is a skill. But there are other kinds of walls that you can see around. If you go to the Lake District or to Yorkshire or down to Devon or Cornwall, you'll find that there are dry stone walls there. And there, the stones are not the same shape and size. It doesn't just take skill to build that. It's an art form, because you have to be able to look and see which stone is going to go in which place. When you build a brick wall, you use mortar to bind it together. And there's a skill in making the mortar right as well. But when you build a dry stone wall, there is no mortar. Every stone relies on the ones below for support, and in its turn supports the one above and to the sides. And Dave Hopkirk, in his poem, likens God to a dry stone waller. Look around here at these living stones. Some are old like me and a bit craggy. Some are tiny and new. Some have the moss of ages on them. Some are sparkling like quartz in granite. We're all different shapes and sizes, but we're called together to be this living temple, to be a support to those who need supporting, and to lean on those who long to support and treasure us. Dave Hopwood says, so many stones, small, large, smooth, jagged, new, old, fitting into this craggy jigsaw body, different sizes, different shapes, all vital, all part of a bigger picture, not a construction designed to keep others out, but a welcoming, generous temple, a kind of place to call home, a lighthouse, a divine landmark, a place where all varieties of stone may fit together, standing on the kind of rock that many overlook, standing on the rock that will stand forever. Standing on that rock that many overlook, on the rock that will last forever. So as we think about the story of Nehemiah, as we're inspired by his vision to look for the mission that we've been given, let's also remember that we're called to work together, that we are those living stones. We are the temple of the living God, that we may be a welcoming place, a place to call home, a place where people are valued and loved, a place where when I need it, I can lean on you, and when you need it, you can lean on me. And to his name be all the glory. Amen.